New talkSPORT Bet customers get an exclusive offer of £40 in free bets when you bet £10. Go to talksportbet.com/Inside Gooners to claim this offer now.
No one expected the way that Guardiola set his team up. He went for Pep-Dyche-iola. Arteta was brave enough at half-time to actually say, I got the start 11 wrong, I've got to do something about this, which he very rarely does. Sometimes you've got to risk losing the game to go and win it.
I think yesterday was an interesting one, because if you go 1-0 up, that's where I want to see us go for the throw. And once we went 1-0 down, which I think was a bit of a shock to the system almost, it was a bit, hang on, we've just dominated the first 8 minutes and we're 1-0 down. For the next 15 minutes then, I felt like we were a bit passive. I think there was a bit of a, well, that's happened once, we can't go 2-0 down against City.
They're not in the conversation because they haven't won that, those sort of elite competitions. So that's, and it would drive you on. I've said before, it would be doing your head in if you keep coming second.
Arteta talks about finishers, and some people query that as a phrase or whatever, but
that's another example of the nonsense that surrounds Arsenal. If Pep Guardiola says that, he's a genius.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Harry Symeou. Welcome back to Inside Gooners, sponsored by talkSPORT Bet. It was a huge game for Arsenal at the weekend. A kind of disappointing result, I suppose, but I guess the way Arsenal bounced back late on, you can take some encouragement from it. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Rory Talks Football and former gunner Perry Groves to get into it. Perry, let's start with you, mate. What was your takeaway from the game? How did you feel sort of coming out of Emirates Stadium on Sunday?
A mixture of relief, mixture of elation as well, because I knew I was lucky enough to be at the game, and I knew that if we'd got beat, there'd have been a massive pile-on of negativity. So the game itself panned out. I didn't expect. No one expected the team that Arteta selected. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the way that Guardiola set his team up, he went for Pep-Dyche-iola, to be fair, wasn't it? Because like being there straight away, you could tell that his mindset was, at the moment, because they're in transition, we're not good enough to take you on a game of football, so we're going to come and we're going to go 4-4-2, Mike Bassett, and you're going to see if you can break us down. And I just thought the elation, obviously, with Martinelli getting the equaliser, that could be massive for the rest of the season. At the end of the season, you might point back and go, actually, that gave the players even more belief that they can get themselves out of trouble. And Arteta was brave enough at half-time to actually say, I got the start 11 wrong, I've got to do something about this, which he very rarely does. Yeah,
and he did, in fairness, act as soon as he possibly could, right? Rory, what was your takeaway? Because if you read so much of the noise online, right, you will get the impression that Mikel Arteta made this monumental error and it's cost Arsenal the title. That's the way it's being spun. It doesn't feel that deep to me. How about you?
Yeah, it's. I do feel like within some of our fan base this season, everything feels like extremely emotional, whichever way it is. And yeah, I came out of the game and I kind of sat back and I was like, how do I feel? Because in the moment, the equaliser goes in, elation. Then that checking offside thing came up on the board and I was thinking, well, we've got semi-automated offsides now, so that's not a good sign. Then you get, the goal. And then you come out feeling like, I do feel like it's 2 points dropped. But is it like we have completely thrown that away? I don't think so. And like you said, I think one really encouraging thing for me was that Arteta made those changes at halftime. I think at the start of halftime I said, big thing now is, will he bring Eze and Saka on? And he did. So I'm like, did he make subtle mistakes with the lineup? Maybe, yeah, probably. Did he correct them pretty much as quickly as he could? Yeah. And then what we saw from City was, I don't think anyone could have predicted it.
I think we've kind of all alluded to the fact that we all believed that the lineup from the beginning wasn't 100% right. What specifically was it, Perry, that you would have done differently?
There's been a big pile-on about Mourinho playing, obviously, in the midfield because that's too negative. I 100% get that because Arteta is a control freak, which Pep Guardiola was a control freak, which he learned how to play, tactically, whatever. So I got the Mourinho one physicality to control that centre midfield area because obviously you got Rodri and then Reinders plays in there, Phil Foden's been playing there. So I got that. When I looked at it, the Trossard one sort of baffled me because you were at home and Trossard is more effective as coming on in the last half an hour, which he's proved like in his Arsenal career. But worst ways out, if you're going to leave out Eze, I'd have played Martinelli from the start, not just because he scored, but I'd have played him from the start because he gives you that pace on the left-hand side. Even though they were setting deep, there's a couple of times where Trossard tried to get in behind and he didn't have the pace to do it. So again, I think that was all about Arteta with more control, because obviously Trossard is better in possession than what Martinelli is. And I think what he will learn is sometimes you've got to risk losing the game to go and win it. And I think that's just where we are. We saw it at Anfield, Arsenal fans, again, we were fairly in control of the game, weren't under pressure. Then you've got to think, right, we've set us to that, now we're going to go and put he calls them impactors or finishers on, right? So I didn't get I must admit, I didn't get the Trossard one. And then, but he didn't expect Guardiola to play the 4-4-2. And I was obviously at the game and I saw the body language of the Man City players, right? So you had Bernardo Silva was playing alongside Haaland when they're out of possession, dropping really deep into our half. You had Phil Foden wide on the right, and he's been getting his form back where he's been playing as a 10, and you had Doku wide on the left, playing deep. They did don't get me wrong, they did their jobs, but you could tell the Man City players were like, really, is this how we've come here? And it's him saying the pendulum swung completely, where we can't take you on because you're better than us at the minute. And the thing that I found ironic was when we did that at the Etihad, when we weren't quite at their level and we had to go there and be controlled, you know what I mean, and hit them on the counter-attack, we got slaughtered for it. No one said anything about Guardiola.
No, and that's the irritating thing about the fallout from this, because when Manchester City do it, it's a new Manchester City. Pep Guardiola's showing he's got another string to his bow.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. 100%. I haven't got anything wrong with that whatsoever. I'm not critical of him. I'm just saying he doesn't get the criticism that we got.
What do you make of the Trossard inclusion? Because I agree with Perry. The Merino one is probably not what I personally would have done, but I can understand the thinking behind it. Mm-hmm. The Trossard one, I was baffled by.
Yeah, almost exactly the same. I think the Merino one, I think people do this weird thing where they go, Arteta didn't want to win. Who do you think he is? Of course he wants to win, but he also wants to limit the potential loss. Going with Merino, I think you're more structurally solid. The amount of impact players we had off the bench, I think he looks at it, he goes, get to 60 minutes, keeping it tight. We can make the difference in the final 30 that they probably can't. That's fine. The Trossard one, like you said, I think Martinelli's pace would have been such a key factor on Ruben Diaz's side of the defence, which is where they've really been weak against quick players in transition. There were a couple of moments in that first half before they'd started really sitting back where Trossard could have been away but just doesn't have that raw pace. And again, if you're then looking at, later in the game, if City have started sitting in to defend a draw or something, well, actually, I'd rather probably have Trossard come on against a team that's sitting deep. So, yeah, I didn't get it. And I don't think playing Martinelli, you lose anything in terms of the defensive structure because he does an incredible amount of defensive work as well. So, yeah, I didn't get that. But then, yeah, like you said, some of the sort of fallout after the game, I found it incredible listening back to Sky, not to dig them out, but they spent half an hour grilling Arsenal for lack of creativity, not being attacking enough. You still hear comments about Merino.
Set pieces.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. You still hear about Merino being a defensive midfielder, even though if you actually watch the game, he's virtually playing alongside Gyökeres half the time. But then they cut to an interview with Pep, and Pep says, I didn't want to play like that, but I had to play like that. My players aren't good enough at the moment to play the way we want to against that Arsenal team, the way that they play. And then it cuts back to Sky and they just kind of ignore that and they go back to bashing Arsenal. It's like you just had Pep sit there and say, for virtually the first time in his career, he couldn't play the way he wanted to play because of how Arsenal set up. And then it's still Arsenal that are the ones that are majorly criticised.
See, I must admit, I'm old, right? So I don't do a lot of online stuff, a lot of X and, all the forums, whatever. But I don't, apparently there's been criticism of Merino and saying saying that he's getting stick when he's on the ball, when he's getting booed, whatever. 100% that didn't happen on Sunday.
Yeah.
I heard no negativity towards him. Nothing, exactly.
No.
But that's what is coming out, that even when he's on the ball, it's not, because if you look at him, he's a lot better technically than what anybody gives him credit for, because he keeps he keeps the ball. Sometimes the thing that was frustrating me, because I was in the media, it's right down on that right-hand side as you come out the tunnel, and there was loads of times where they could have got it to Madueke a lot quicker, where Declan Rice sometimes runs with it 3 or 4 paces. Merino does, instead of just getting it out your feet and then pinging it to Madueke early, and even if he gives you back and he makes it 1-2, or so sometimes that would be the only thing I'd say. Sometimes in possession, when we had a lot of possession, we didn't move the ball around quick enough in the first half. In the second half, we did. Because you can tell that Arteta, even making his changes, had said to him, you have to move the ball a lot quicker to try and isolate like those wide areas.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think especially with the Trossard decision, that was the one that for me as well was the confusing one. And I've got a little bit of a theory, and it might be unfair. Like, feel free to shoot it down if you feel the need to, guys. But
is it a conspiracy theory?
It's not a conspiracy theory.
No,
it's an Arteta-related theory, right? So here he is now with this much bigger squad. And we're talking a lot about the options that we have, and you could see it on the bench at the weekend. You know, lots of players that you can call upon to bring on in a situation where you need to improve at the top end of the pitch. Does he quite know how to rotate effectively yet? Because it's not something that he's had the luxury of doing in his career as a manager to date. And I'm just wondering if his rotation is not based on game to game. It's more based on form. Because if you think about it, Mikel Merino goes on international duty, plays brilliantly for Spain, scores the goals. Nottingham Forest comes up, Merino's in the team and Rice isn't. Then you look at what happened in midweek in Bilbao. Trossard comes off the bench, assists and scores, and then he's in the starting 11. Is Arteta worried about upsetting people? Is he worried about, maybe not so much upsetting people, but is he worried about the squad looking as though it's being picked based purely on merit? And if players are coming in and doing the business, does he feel a need, even if it's not tactically the right thing, to reward them for that, to keep that harmony? I don't know.
I don't think he gives a rat's backside about upsetting people. I think he's ruthless enough when he's got obviously a squad that he's got to utilise. The thing on the Eze thing and Trossard as well is Eze didn't play very well against Bilbao.
Agreed.
Right, but it wasn't through lack of effort. It wasn't through. It was just he just wasn't on it when he glides with the ball. He's very good with his body. Whatever, he give the ball away a few times. I just looked at that and thought, that's the time when you need to say to the player, by the way, I believe in you 100%. Because everybody knows Eze's got a good record against Man City, like scoring the winning goal in the FA Cup final. I think that's sometimes on the man management side where you can put your arm around someone and go, look, you did your job for the team, you're playing Sunday. Do you know what I mean? And that gives the player another lift of confidence. But to be fair to Eze, when he come on, he didn't look like he lacked confidence. You know what I mean? He had the impact in the game that obviously you want him to have, because the ball he put through for Martinelli when he picks it up, and that's when he's playing where he'd rather play rather than like one of the width for the free, where he wants to play a little bit more central, and he looked more comfortable in there. So going forward, then now you hope that obviously play Newcastle next game, that Arteta might think, you know what, I can trust Eze in there. I can trust him with Declan Rice, with Zubimendi behind him.
I think structurally Mikel is spot on, right? He sets us up in a way that makes us very difficult to beat and makes us control games. That was the lowest possession Man City has ever had,
in Pep
Guardiola's
career.
ever had.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about what Mikel's capable of doing in terms of structure. But does he just sometimes need to, as you said, trust people to go and win the game? Does he need to put more emphasis on the match winners than the structure providers, if that makes sense? Because I think what this has really done, Rory, is shone a light on how important Martin Odegaard is in terms of bringing a balance to that midfield. Because if you go with Merino, Rice and Zubimendi, it feels very industrious, very structured, but not creative enough. But if you play Eze in there, or you play Nwaneri in there, then I'd imagine, and it's not what I would believe, but I'd imagine Mikel would look at that and go, that makes me a bit lightweight. And that Odegaard inclusion, it gives you the balance, doesn't it, between the two things?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't necessarily have an issue with that at all. And I do think it's very easy to say Eze should have started the game in midfield because that's more creative, etc. Eze's not really played in the right side of a central midfield much at all in his career. Certainly not for Arsenal. Certainly not with the demands that specific position has within the Arsenal team in terms of leading the press like Odegaard does, like Mourinho's learned to do. So I think that would have been a lot to put on Eze. Now you might say, Eze's good enough to do it. He's intelligent enough to do it. Gamble. Arteta isn't necessarily that risky.
He's not a gambler, is he?
He's not.
He's not a gambler.
And I don't necessarily think he needed to.
So what you're saying, when he's playing Pontoon, he's going to stick on 17?
Yeah.
16, 17.
I think he plays the percentages a lot. There's a lot of things we do where I think he plays the percentages. When we're trying to break a team down towards the end of the game and we religiously stick to, or we previously did, playing the ball to the sort of top corner of the box and putting those in-swinging crosses into the back post again and again and again. I'm certain he thinks the percentage play is to do that, because if you do it enough, the ball will drop eventually and you'll put it away. Football doesn't always work like that, and we know that. So, yeah, I think the Marino one, again, I understand it. I think back to what you were saying about your theory about keeping players happy. I don't think he's ever necessarily cared about keeping players happy. We'll never really know, because especially after that game, actually, he was really defensive in his post-match press conference about the decisions he made with the lineup. I don't think you'll ever get an answer, but I'm certain he had a reason for starting Trossard, that he genuinely thought, whether it was having the ability to bring Martinelli off the bench with the pace, if City was still playing a high line at that point, it would be more dangerous. I'm sure there was a reason for it. But
see, I think it was based on form. And I know that Mikel's brave enough to make big decisions. I don't for a second doubt that. The way he came in and handled the Ozil situation and the Aubameyang situation, when he was a much less experienced coach.
That's when he was a coach and not a manager.
Yeah.
That's when he was exerting his power
exactly.
and control.
So I give him all the credit in the world for that, and I believe he's brave enough to do what he thinks is the right thing. I just wonder if he's got in his own head a little bit about what having this bigger squad with more options means. And I think what's happened last season with all the injuries has probably put it in his head that he needs to manage people's minutes more carefully. I think Mikel is someone that throughout his career has reacted to normally what's gone on in the season prior. And maybe he's going with what he believes the right answer is statistically in terms of volume of minutes, etc., rather than going with his gut and his instinct. That's my one concern about him this season.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, Trossard had a great game at home to City last year, right? So you may even look back at that and go, well, this fair. Worked. I think, to be honest, I think Kusanov had a really, really good game for them. I think he gets criticised a lot in the media. I thought he physically really, really strong.
You know why that was, though? Because you knew that Trossard
that's the thing.
weren't going in behind him.
That's the thing. And that's where, for me,
a bit more on the front foot.
And Martinelli, where he's now recently been drifting much more centrally with those runs, I think drifting between Kusanov and Diaz, I think that would have been more threatening. But yeah, look, I think, and this is what is annoying me. These are like subtle tactical things that we maybe think we know better than Arteta. We probably don't. We might. But the way that people have reacted in such a way as to he has destroyed our entire season by picking Trossard over Martinelli, that's where I'm like, okay, we need to
calm down.
Exactly,
go and be a bit yoga, have an ice bath. Because and it's not as if we've drawn at home 1-1 with Sunderland or Burnley, like a newly promoted team. Do you know what I mean? You're playing against Man City and a manager who's widely regarded as one of the, if not the best manager. I still think Arsene Wenger changed the culture more than what Guardiola did. But so it's the belief that will come into the players. Honestly, that dressing room will now think, actually, we can get ourselves out, because we were in a bit of trouble. Like, because
for sure,
the pylon would have been like unbelievably unbearable if we'd have got beat. So we said it was like elation and relief. If you'd have said, now we all know the Newcastle game is, all our games are massive, right? But this is huge. The period of 6 games that we've had, if you'd have said at the beginning of the season, by the way, you'll come out of those 6 games and you'll have between 13, 15 points, you'd have gone, actually, I'll take that from those period of 6 games. So it build that we can calm down a little bit, obviously playing like Port Vale coming up, but it will come, that will be huge. If we beat Newcastle on Sunday, then that period of 6 games, you'd go, yeah, we've come out of that pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you've got to be in the race going into the business end. We've learnt the hard way that just because you're top of the pile in sort of September, October, it doesn't mean you're going to go on and win the thing. We touched on Noni Madueke. I thought he had a good first half. I think he's been bright since he's arrived at Arsenal, much brighter than maybe people expected. But we have heard today, Rory, that it looks like he's going to be out for up to 8 weeks. That's what talkSPORT are reporting today, among others as well. That's a big blow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for him as much as anyone else, because I think, like you said, he'd hit the ground running at Arsenal. I think a lot of the fan base had changed their minds pretty quickly, about how he'd started. And yeah, he's looked bright, and it is frustrating. It's another example of one player comes back and immediately the player that they would compete with or share minutes with goes out. 2 months, I mean, that takes you to probably just after the November international break, which our run of games until then, given the start that we've had, is not so bad. So, and with the likes of Martinelli, Dalman, we do have cover there, Saka coming back. But yeah, it's it's every game so far this season there's been a big injury, right? It was Havertz game 1, Saka, Ødegaard game 2, Saliba game 3, Ødegaard again game 4, and now Madueke. So it's frustrating, but we do at least now have the depth that it's not as problematic as it used to be.
Thing is, no one's questioned the Madueke one now. When it began the season, Chelsea fans were like, well, he ain't that good anyway, really. We're not bothered that he's gone. Now they're moaning that they ain't got anybody in their wide areas who's as good as Madueke, apart from Neto. And then Arsenal fan, I got it. I got the Madueke thing because he was bought for when teams sit deep, and he's very good 1v1s. The only thing he's got to do, which he has to improve his final pass, his final delivery. When he's going on, where you saw Bukayo Saka, where his game's involved, his final pass, when he cuts inside, 9 times out of 10 he got it right. When he went on the outside of his weaker right foot, he wasn't as good. You can tell that Saka's worked on that and worked it. Now his delivery with his right foot is excellent. That's exactly what Madueke's got to do, because what he does is when he gets on the outside, then he wants to try and cut across when sometimes there's not enough space, where you just got to think, what I've got to do is I just got to cross it. But that comes down to Gyökeres, where he's got to get more vocal and tell the wide areas, oi, I'm making my runs in the box here, get the ball into the flipping box. Do you know what I mean? So you need Gyökeres just to grow into that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think with Madueke, the final ball, I mean, I quite like it sometimes when he goes, you think he's going to put the ball across. When he goes down the outside, you think he's going to put the ball across.
And he checks.
And then or when he takes that extra touch and almost gets into the sort of 6-yard box to then pull it back. I think Timber nearly scored against Forest, was it, doing that sort of thing. So, I like it. It's different. And like you said, with Gyökeres, and I think that's probably another point is, I think I saw a stat today, there's 3 games he's played now without getting a shot off in the game, which for a striker that you brought in to score goals is obviously difficult. And I think that's somewhere we need to perhaps look at feeding him more.
Well, let's talk about Victor Gyökeres, because he's got 3 goals in 5 Premier League games, and statistically, if anybody was to question him, he would hold that piece of paper up, wouldn't he? And he'd say, I've got 3 goals in my first 5 Premier League games, get off my back. Mm-hmm. But the performances all round, I'm not going to say they've been bad, because I appreciate that he's come into a new team. He plays in a very different way to what we've traditionally had at number 9, which has meant that it's not just about him adapting, it's about the rest of the group adapting to him as well. But, I mean, Perry, what have you made of his early performances? Because for me, he's not as involved in games as I'd like him to be.
Yeah, I think that is, again, the frustration a little bit when you're watching is we've got to get where we either help it into him or we help it into the channels. Like against Nottingham Forest, we didn't. Come out in the second half, Calafiori dinks it over into the channel. I know it was for Eze to run through. And the goal that Gyökeres scores, we don't score that last season.
Yeah.
Because there's no one in the 6-yard box. So we've got to get used to sometimes going longer a little bit quicker, and because we know that he's going to run in the channels. Again, it's like scoring goals to Sporting Lisbon, don't get me wrong, is brilliant record in the Premier League there, a good record in Champions League. When you're playing for Arsenal, you're judged on a completely different level. You're under the spotlight. Alan Smith, when he came to Arsenal, he didn't score for his first 3 games, and even back then in the papers he's wasting money, should have got Kerry Dixon, and you're like, hold on a minute, I've played 3 games. But that's the level that you're at, so he's got to get used to that. I think his work ethic is spot on. Like, he closes down, he leads the press, whatever. People forget as well that he does engage centre halves. He does try and hold it up. He does get flick on. So it's all about him getting that just a little bit more confidence. And there was one in the second half where the ball got fizzed across the 6-yard box, and he just got in there a little bit too early. So I think a centre forward, when they're relaxed and they're not thinking about it too much, he leaves the space in front a little bit and just holds. So he's going through a thought process in his head where he's probably overthinking stuff. Do you know what I mean? But as you said there, 3 goals in 5 games. He's going to get, what's going to be levelled at him is he's got to score a goal in a big game. Because that's the things that come back, that you only score against, the middle teams, the bottom, like the flat track bodies, whatever. But I want, what I'm watching is just someone who's just trying to integrate himself in, because Man City players, when they go there, they always say it takes a while to get used to the system under Pep Guardiola. Arteta's exactly the same. It's very formulaic. It's very right. When we got the ball here, then we come out. When we're in transition, you come you sit the press, then you come in the inside left. So he's getting used to all that. So I'm lucky enough. I don't listen to the noise. I just watch and see what my eyes see, and I see someone who's like giving everything he's got.
It was a bit of a shame for me that he had to come off in the Bilbao game, because I felt that was the most involved he'd been in any game in terms of the volume of runs in behind. Obviously, he had that header at the start of the second half, which he put wide. But it felt like to me like he was building up to something in that game. And obviously, the head injury meant that he couldn't continue. But I felt that was a real shame. Just on a kind of broader point around sort of Arsenal and where they're at right now, do you think that there needs to be a bit of a mentality shift? I'm not saying a reinvention, because to be where we are means that we've come a long way, full stop. But do you think there needs to be a bit more of a let's go for the throat approach when we're playing, especially at home, against the sides that we're going to be competing with?
Yeah, I think so. I said, actually, I was really happy after the Forest game that last season at home, even in those games that we should be put into bed quite easily, we didn't. We made a lot of the easier games really difficult last season, whereas this season, thumped Leeds, cruised past Forest. I was really happy with that. But yeah, I do think against City, and that's where, and I thought we did to an extent, and again, this is where, like, I feel like people confuse tactics or lineups with the actual intent in the game. I thought we really put City under pressure in the opening 8 minutes before they scored yesterday. Day before yesterday. They barely got out of their own half, and we were really squeezing them in. But again, if you have Eze, maybe do you create more in those 8 minutes? And yeah, I do think we should go for the throat more. I think yesterday was an interesting one, because if you go 1-0 up, that's where I want to see us go for the throat. And once we went 1-0 down, which I think was a bit of a shock to the system almost, it was a bit, hang on, we just dominated the first 8 minutes and we're 1-0 down. For the next 15 minutes then, I felt like we were a bit passive. I think there was a bit of a, well, that's happened once, we can't go 2-0 down against City. So
what happened, the atmosphere just died down. In the Emirates, it just died down, didn't it? It was, yeah. So, yeah. But I looked at us, I saw it a different way. I don't think we didn't panic.
No, we didn't panic.
We didn't panic. We didn't go a little bit discombobulated where you go, all right, we'll lose like the control that we had. It took us 10 minutes to exert
it was just a bit of a
again. Exactly, yeah. It's like a reset.
Yeah.
And what you're saying there is, like, these 6 games have been really difficult. We can't draw as many games as we did last season. That's what cost. Like, we drawing games that you should go and win. So I'm just with Arteta, as you said there. I think as well that you have to keep going for goals, because it could come down to goal difference.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
sure.
So you have to just keep pushing and pushing. But I'm just looking at this group of players have an assurance about them. Do you know what I mean? But we all know we have to win something.
Yeah.
We have to win something. For this group of players to be mentioned, you know, everybody says, would they get in the Invincibles team? Would they get in the team that I played in 1991? But they're not in those conversations at the minute, because they have. Once you win a title or you win a Champions League, then you get in the conversations compared to the great Arsenal teams. At the minute, they're not in the conversation because they haven't won that, you know, those sort of elite competitions. So that's, and it would drive you on. I've said before, it would be doing your head in if you keep coming second.
Yeah.
It's got to.
No, of course, because we're so close, and that's what frustrates me about some of the analysis. It's we're not a million miles away, but the dismissal of all the good things that have happened to get us to this point, each and every time we drop a point, it's wild. It's completely out of proportion. On a positive note, Gabriel Martinelli come on in midweek, brilliant goal, comes on again, scores an unbelievable goal. I always think he's at his best when he's playing off of instinct.
Yep.
You put the ball in behind, his eyes light up, he's got the pace to get there, and his instinct. He hasn't got time to think about it, hasn't got time to dwell on it. That was just classic Gabriel Martinelli for me, and I'm really pleased that it was him that made those 2 vital contributions, because over the summer there's been a lot of conversations around him.
Yeah, I think it's probably been the hardest time in his Arsenal career. You know, when he came in as a youngster, probably very little expectations on what he'd do. And then for the past 3-4 years, he'd been a regular first-team player. And I think to drop out straight away at the start of the season, you know, it was the new signings came in and immediately took his spot. That must be a very difficult thing to sort of process, but there's been no sulking, there's been none of that. It's just been head down, I'll take my opportunities when they come, and he's done it really well. And, you know, the size of the squad that we've got now, there is going to be there are going to be very few players that will just be starting week in, week out. And for the rest of them, what you want to see is that they are still willing to be part of this group. They still see themselves as part of this group. And when they come on, they're going to take those opportunities. And I think, Arteta talks about finishers, and some people query that as a phrase or whatever. But
that's another example of the nonsense that surrounds Arsenal. If Pep Guardiola says that, he's a genius.
Yeah. It's a rugby term. It's a rugby term. It came from
Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones, yeah, exactly. So, which again, everyone thinks is genius, probably because England won things. But the point is, if Martinelli can come on and do that, and he may start against Port Vale tomorrow night, but if he can come on and make that impact, he is going to be remembered just as much as anyone else in the squad come the end of the season if we're lifting something. So, yeah, buzzing for him.
See, I think he's better when the game stretches out. Yeah. I think he's better because... And the thing that he looks like, everybody knows he's lightning quick, but he wasn't playing with any confidence last season. And what would happen is, it wasn't his fit, it was his second touch. As he was breaking away, his second touch would be too heavy. If you look at the goals against Bilbao, where the ball gets obviously flicked over from Trossard, his first touch is great because he takes it away from the defender. His second touch is better because it's still in his stride. Do you know what I mean? So then that gives him the chance then to compose himself. It went underneath the goalkeeper, obviously, because he's trying to bend it further in the corner. So I just think even though he's still the lightning, I think he's a bit more composed. And even the goal against Man City, his first touch, he gets him behind. His first touch is great. Because again, that sets it up for the second one where he looks and then flicks it over the outside of his right foot. So I think he just seems in a good place and a good space himself. And the other thing I liked about it is he actually swapped over. He was on the left. He was on the right hand side, and Saka had gone to the left.
Yeah.
We never did that last season.
Yeah.
That was one of my banes. When you're trying to break things, just for 10, 15 minutes, swap the wide boys over just to give the full-back something to think about. So we swapped it over, and all we've got to do is just, you're on social media, just read his girlfriend's posts and we'll be all right, because she actually nailed it spot on, didn't she? She said, yep, you will be the game changer.
Yeah, I think you're bang on with the instinct thing. I think when he's out wide, out on the touchline, whenever he gets the ball, he has time to get his head up. He has time to think about what he's going to do. There are options for him to have. When he's making that run through the middle, you haven't got an option. You've got to score. There's no one to pass to. So he's got to do it. And, the goal, if you look at it from the angle behind the goal, he has the briefest of glances up once to see that Donnarumma's off his line, and then it's just instinctual.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember when he first broke into the team, when he first came, it was under Unai Emery that he made his debut. And I remember looking at Martinelli and thinking, this guy's a centre-forward. He scored goals in the Europa League at the time. And then he ended up playing on the left-hand side. And I've been going back and forward in my mind for years now. What is Gabriel Martinelli? Is he a winger or is he a centre-forward? The problem is when you're a team that often plays against low blocks like we do, actually having a centre-forward of that profile is only valuable in certain game states, right? Yep. So it's probably never going to be your go-to. But actually, is he better, Perry, playing through the middle? Is that where he can do the most damage?
No, I must admit, I think when you're playing through the middle, obviously the angle of the pitch changes completely. So, and also you've got to have the way that we play, you have to have a focal point. You have to have someone who's going to engage with the two tens and the wide player, so you need someone to be able to hold it up. I just think people forget as well, when you're a footballer, there's very few players that break in and they're unbelievable when they're young, and the trajectory is always on the up. There's always the graph when you're younger, it's always undulates like that, like if you're going up Snowdon basically. But then as you get older, that graph then starts to just even itself out a bit. That's where he is, because he's an experienced player now. Do you know what I mean? And I think he's done brilliantly because he's embraced the challenge with all these players that like obviously coming in with obviously Madueke and Eze. Everybody thought, well, that's Martinelli done. What's he going to do? So what he's done, he's gone, okay, really, I've got to up my game, which he's done. The only thing that happens is if you keep having impacts when you're coming off the bench, then the manager sometimes thinks that's where, that half hour, 35, as you said, he'll play against probably Port Vale tomorrow night. It'll be quite a strong team because it'll be all the ones that'll be sitting on the bench that'll have to get their minutes. But he's in the best place of his career. He's probably been in for the last 2.5, 3 seasons.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that for a second. Sunday's game was such a big game that we had to extend the conversation out to some more of the Inside Gooners family. So let's have a listen to what Adrian Clark and Clive Palmer made of it.
Let's get cracking then, Clive. A good point or 2 points drop? That's the big dilemma, I guess, as we reflect on that match, on that performance. Where do you stand?
Well, 5 minutes after the final whistle, it felt like a good point, didn't it? You know, there was a lot of relief in the stadium, a lot of joy and hugging of people around you. So those feelings take a little while to sort of fall away. And then you sort of get involved in all the different narratives that are out there. And then you think, crikey, are we that bad? And then you have to think back to how you felt before the game. And I'm sure it's the same with you, Adrian. When the team sheet was announced, you thought, there's a little bit of a kick in the stomach. Not massive, no, there's a kick in the stomach. Did we have the right team? But let's see what the game looks like, you know. And I think a lot of coaches now are looking at the game, and they want to look at it from a stable base. 9 minutes in, that stable base is gone, and the team selection that you have on the pitch may not look like the right team, but that's football, right?
Yeah, exactly. I felt like Mikel Arteta maybe expected a different type of game. Yeah. Maybe expected Manchester City to have a lot more of the ball. I think we probably all had a right to expect Man City would have more of the ball because this was a record low on their part, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And when you have as much possession as Arsenal had in this game, you want more creative players on the pitch, don't you? That number 10 instead of Merino. It does dramatically alter the way we play, doesn't it, Clive? Because I always feel when Merino plays, everything's going to go wide. Yeah, you're solid down the middle, but everything's going wide. There's no real link between midfield and attack. And it's quite predictable.
Yeah.
Whereas having that number 10 that's a little bit elusive between the lines tends to sort of, I think, draw more defenders out and create better situations. Do you see it like that as well?
I do. There were 2 or 3 what I call Polaroid moments in that first half where he took a picture and the ball goes into Merino and he turns the wrong way and then he gets crowded out and we don't get out of that little cul-de-sac. Then we turn over the ball, Reinders gets a shot. There's another one when he turned the wrong way and we should have gone forward and went backwards. Now, in Bilbao in a European game and you're trying to play a slower pace game, that was absolutely fine. In a home game, you want somebody with the ingenuity on the ball to turn out of that pressure and get us flying up the pitch and making those connections from the side. So I just thought it was the wrong game for him. Given the game state, it was just the wrong game. And for me, that happens. But it's how you react. At this time, unlike Anfield, Adrian, we reacted at half-time. You know, and that was the key thing for me.
Yeah. And do you think that's a sign that Mikel's changing? Because it feels quite unusual, doesn't it? That obviously one sub was forced with Madueke injured and Saka on, but to bring Eze on at half time and to play him as a number 10 felt doubly bold, really, I guess, from Mikel Arteta's part. Is that something we can cling on to, Clive, and think, well, Mikel is learning, he is changing a little bit?
I think if we learn one thing from this game is that we can play Eze in an Arsenal number 10, not just a Crystal Palace left 10, an Arsenal number 10. And I think we learned that from this game. So that risk has gone. Does it mean we have a new benchmark now? I thought he was excellent, but in a different way to Odegaard. He sort of was far more mobile. And he went into different zones of the pitch a lot more. He was central, he was right. He sort of followed the ball a little bit and created his own rhythm. I thought it was really good to see. I sort of want to say to you, Adrian, this game was quite similar to Anfield in some ways, because I didn't expect to have the ball at Anfield, and then we got it. I didn't expect to have the ball against City, then we got it. So are they telling us what we're not good at? Are they saying to us, we are not so good on the ball, we think we can block you out and transition on you because you're going to make a mistake? Are they saying to us we're not creative enough? Sometimes when you see it once, you think, okay, I didn't see that. When you see it twice, is it respect or is it a weakness that we have that we need to uncover? And we did sort it out in the second half. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think you're right. I actually think that other teams look at us and say, well, they struggle most when they have loads of the ball, and they're a little bit too structured, and they can't hurt us.
Yeah,
because it was a little bit predictable, wasn't it? Even though Madueke had a good game down the right, it was a little bit formulaic, wasn't it, in the way that Arsenal approached the game. So look, hopefully there are a few lessons learned. What did you make of the goal that we conceded? Is there anything we could have done better, Clive? 'Cause I'm looking back at, obviously Gabriel gets drawn in.
Yeah.
What, 2, 3 or 4 players get drawn into one area. They play out nicely. But then from the 1v1, should Saliba have almost just focused his attention on blocking the pathway to Haaland? Because it was such an easy pass in the end.
It was,
mate, wasn't it?
It was. It was sort of a 2-on-2, and then Haaland decided to go into fifth gear. Right, he turned that 2-on-2 to a 3-on-2. Talk about a slow death. You could see it coming, couldn't you? In the stadium, you could see it coming. Here he comes, monstering down the pitch, and we couldn't. I think Saliba tried to delay, waiting for the cavalry, and the cavalry couldn't catch up. Right, so and so. I actually thought both goals were excellent in the game. I think on this one, Adrian, I think if Gabriel gets drawn in, mate, you got to take the kitchen sink, haven't you? You got to go through him and make sure you stop it at source. So we had if Merino plays in this game, you want him to catch those second balls, win those, hoover them up. They was all in that area, and Haaland found a way out of jail, right, and went up the pitch. I think it's an excellent goal. I think for me, source is more important than the last pass, but you can take your choice, right? You can blame Saliba, blame Gabriel. It doesn't matter. It's a great goal, great goal.
No, I agree with you. I think it was a really strong goal from Manchester City's point of view. Our goal was a very good goal as well. Martelli delivering again. Obviously, he's had a great week. He's shown, the value that he has coming in from the wing to make those runs down the middle. And of course, now people are saying, well, is he a striker option? So I'm going to say to you, is he a striker option?
He is a running off the ball option. And I think he's going back to that again, isn't he? And a lot of his greater moments this week have come by his movement. And he's always been a good mover. I think he's been a bit, he's playing a game maybe doesn't suit him, a dribbling, carrying game. He can obviously do it, but he's a much better off the ball mover. And we're starting to play to him, right? So I do think there is so many people trying to get into this team and show us who they are. And I know we're going to have so many first 11 debates or start 11 debates this year because we've got so much choice, right? So, but we're still not quite at full power because the key attacking players, Havertz, Odegaard, Saka, have not really been present. So we're trying to build these teams, and we're picking them. I've never seen Eze play in that right 10 role for us, for anybody, right? So we have to say to ourselves, okay, I understand why we didn't do it, but I can't deny when that team sheet came out, there was one ball player missing for me. I don't care where it is, just one ball player missing.
Yeah. No, I think we all felt the same. We wanted to go on the front foot, and we wanted to say, right, we're going to take it to you, and we're going to outscore you, and be a bit bolder, be a bit more adventurous. And we didn't get that until the second half, did we? So do you think that this will be a turning point for Mikel Arteta, or are you of the mind that he's kind of married to this, and that for these big games against the teams that he respects the most, that we're going to go safety first, Mikel Merino, muscular midfield? What's your gut telling you on that?
My gut's telling me that we see Mikel Merino differently to what the coach sees him.
Yeah.
He sees a different player. I think he sees that player as a very tactical player, understands when to pressure the ball, when to drop away. What does Odegaard do? He's a tactical leader on the pitch. The next most intelligent is probably Mikel Merino, but has he got the ingenuity on the ball? I don't think he has in certain phases of the game and certain zones of the pitch. So he sees that player as different. Now, the fans who haven't got our jobs on the line, we want to see the number 10s, you want to see the flair players, you want to see anybody, but that player in a home game. For Anfield, I could deal with it just about. Yeah. For a home game, I think there was an opportunity there. But I said it earlier, I do think, much like a boxing match, in the first 2-3 rounds, they're looking at each other. And so this is where we're going. I also think Merino may be playing because Gyökeres's first ball in isn't secure. And Merino is good on that second pass out. So he's almost playing, if Havertz there, we don't need a Merino. Do you see what I mean? Because he looks after the ball. And I think it's all about risk managing the integration of these new players. And I think I'm trying to explain why he did it, because I wouldn't have done it, but he's not stupid. So why has he done it? And I think that's what he's trying to do. Give us that build up higher up, the second pass out, a bit of retention, and then go from there. But we needed a little bit more than that on the ball, and that's where the game transpired.
Yeah, I think so. The way that Eze got the ball between the lines on numerous occasions, and he's looking to play the forward passes, it gave the team a new element. I think if Mikel Merino plays, and I really like him as a player, he's an excellent footballer, and he is bright and he's intelligent, and I see why managers love him. But if he plays that role, he's got to get in the box.
Yeah.
When we get into crossing positions, and I didn't see him in the box.
No.
In the game, unfortunately. So that for me was undoubtedly missing. Yeah. You mentioned Gyökeres. Where do you stand with him at the moment? Because I was on the way home from the game, and someone said to me, Adrian, what do you think of Gyökeres? I'm not sure about him myself, and it's one of those where I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what I feel myself about him at the moment. I still believe he will be a success, but it's not clicked in the way maybe he would have liked. That's fair, isn't it?
It's fair. In the highest quality games, he hasn't really shown up. No. But what I will say is, I think the intention was always to play him and Kai share the minutes all the way along. Okay. And now we're seeing him learn and develop live, all starting every game. And I felt, when I walked out of the stadium, I thought, I didn't see much of him in this game. Did he stop running after a period of time? I've just rewatched it, and he worked really hard. I haven't seen the numbers yet, Adrian, on distance cover, but he never stops working, never stops. And I do think some of his runs are quite basic. You see what I mean? I think they had a back five, and they dropped off and read them, and so they nullified his runs in behind by playing that back five. So I think it's just a challenge for him. I do think he's got real striking ability, and we're not seeing it yet. But I want Kai Havertz back so we can see them in patches, and they look fresh. Either together or one sharing the games, and I feel he looked a little bit fatigued in this game. I may just be seeing things, but I'm going to stay with him. It's still early, and there are other strikers in the league similarly trying to adjust.
If Kai Havertz was fully fit ahead of the weekend game, let's say Newcastle away, or even the game just gone, say he's fully fit, do you think Kai Havertz plays ahead of Gyökeres in those tough games, those big games?
We know our manager, right? So Kai starts at Old Trafford. He starts at Liverpool, and he starts against City. The other games, I don't think he would start, and because that's how you get someone into your club. You try to give him a lower game to try to boost him up, get him going, see the patterns, etc. We know our manager. That's what he would do, and I think that's the right thing to do. Doesn't mean Kai has to end the game. That means you're bringing on power, speed late in the game. We see what Martinelli can do with his running late in games. He looks quicker against tired defences. So I do think that's been a miss. But we are where we are, and we just got to wait. We are bringing a lot of players, 6-7 players into the group. I want to see a bit more from him, but he's out there doing it and trying to do it. So we just got to keep pushing the ball towards him.
That's all we've got time for on this episode of Inside Gooners. Thanks for joining us. A big thanks to Rory Talks Football, to Perry Groves, to Adrian Clark, and to Clive Palmer. We'll see you all next time.